Murder charges have been issued today for all 5 Memphis police officers, now relieved of duty, former officers, for the beating death of Tyre Nichols. Those former officers are also now in custody. The people you see on your screen, now in civilian clothing, booked and incarcerated, awaiting what would be a murder trial. They are charged with killing this individual through a knowing state of mind, and all 5, and we'll explain the legalities of this, accused of contributing directly to the death. This is Justin Smith, Emmett Martin, Desmond Mills Jr., Demetrius Haley, and Tadarius Bean. There are other charges in addition to the most serious charge of murder, aggravated assault, and kidnapping. This is a case that has roiled Memphis and the rest of the nation, and in some ways, while it involves the tragic death of Tyre Nichols, it is also a case, as we'll explore tonight, that shows how some law enforcement responses to law enforcement killings are changing. He died 3 days after being pulled over for what was something that shouldn't have been a nonviolent violent interaction at all, alleged reckless driving. The DA now revealing more about what was a confrontation where Nichols apparently fled on foot and feared for his life. There was a second confrontation then with this violent beating. And this is what he looked like in the hospital. This is a tough photo to look at. I mentioned this when we first discussed this last night with Maya Wiley and in our coverage. But this is a photo that his family put out precisely because they were concerned at the time about his health. This was before he died, and about the law enforcement response. This was after the January 7th traffic stop. He died 3 days later. As for the news today and what is the relatively rare charge still across all of America, the rare charge of officers facing accusations of murder, well, here's the DA today.
Each of the 5 individuals played a different role in the incident in question. The actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols, and they are all responsible. All responsible, and all responsible legally. The DA now moving forward with what will be murder trials for 5 people. Now, the body camera footage and video will be released, they say, tomorrow. There was a kind of an order to this. The charges announced before this video, whatever is on it, and we have information from the family about their view of it before that hits the world and Memphis tomorrow. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's director said this today.
I'm shocked. I'm sickened by what I saw and what we've learned through our extensive and thorough investigation. I've seen the video, and as DA Morley stated, you will too. In a word, it's absolutely appalling.
Appalling. And these are law enforcement professionals who have seen their share of difficult material. We've also heard from the family, as mentioned, about how they viewed this. And if you're watching this and noticing that this is different, I will tell you, as a matter of law, precedent, and recent news, it is very different. We're going to get into that tonight. How, in other cases, we have heard over and over from many law enforcement professionals, current and former, and many police unions, that you can't do it like this, that it takes months, sometimes years, to conduct these investigations, that you can't release the video right away. And while there are times that this is potentially complicated, and there are certainly factors that go into any difficult investigation revolving around a death, Memphis is showing that they're doing it differently than they and many other places used to. Now, the Memphis police chief spoke out very starkly about this alleged conduct. Again, we don't have the video yet, but what is now the conduct underlying murder charges. And the police chief was very clear about this in terminating the officers. But we should also note that the chief was not present in this dramatic and important press conference today. She did say about the video, which she has viewed, that she thought it was, the conduct showed by those ex-officers, heinous, quote, reckless, and, quote, inhumane. Here's what we heard from the family's lawyer.
He was a human pinata for those police officers. It was an unadulterated, unabashed, nonstop beating of this young boy for 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
That was just some of that obviously difficult presentation. There is a separate and open federal investigation. The rarity here would seem to be significant. the action was far more swift than the vast majority of police brutality cases we've covered, both in the Deep South as well as around the nation. And we're going to get into all of it with more than one expert, but I begin with someone that we call on when we look at these cases, whether there's action or inaction, a former NYPD police detective, Mark Claxton, who also now directs the Black Law Enforcement Alliance. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ari.
Let's start with the case against these officers. That is the big news tonight. And then I want to broaden out to some of what I've mentioned. The DA making it clear that they view the evidence that they have, which has not yet been released, as sufficient to support the serious charge of murder, as well as the culpability of all 5 officers, the contributions legally that they made to this very tragic death that grew out of a police traffic stop. Your response to that case based on what we know?
I think it should be evident to all of us that whatever is on the video, and as you indicated, we'll see it shortly, perhaps tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, must be very clear and convincing enough for 2 separate assessments of law enforcement professionals to speak so boldly and be so offended by what they had witnessed and be motivated enough to actually rapidly begin a prosecution and arrest